and he likes seafood. All right, so if anybody wants to treat him to anything, you know what to do. Let's welcome Kirk.
I want to thank you all for having me here in this wonderful state of New Hampshire. I have been here several times in the past. I came here several years ago. I spoke in front of the legislature when the governor, Sheehan was the governor at the time. And I've been around here, and Arnie and I are old friends, and you know, we just, you know, I love this state. It's so similar to the one of Maryland that I come from. I want to thank everybody, and Judge, I want to thank you and all your support and all the leaders here at the New Hampshire Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty. It's great to know you all. I usually start off my talks, and thank you for that wonderful thing. You got to watch what you say to people, because they will tell you, they will say it. But it's the truth. So I am single, and I do like eat seafood. So I want you guys, and I'm going to talk about something that you touched on, sir, is about prison. I'm going to talk about that at length here in a second. But first of all, and since we got a few lawyers in the room, I want to tell you about the first lawyer I ever had. Now, I want you to picture a prison visiting room, okay? There's a glass partition between you and your lawyer. Your lawyer comes in off the street to an archway that's 8 foot high and 10 foot wide. And he sits with his back to a brick wall. And the first thing out of his mouth, he says, Kirk, you're in a lot of trouble. He says, but don't worry, I know my way around the courtroom. I know my way around the criminal justice system. We're going to find our way out of here together. So I started feeling a little better. I didn't have any money, and this was my public defender, and he was going to try to save my life. Talked about the case for about 20 minutes, and right before he gets ready to leave, he reiterates what he said in the beginning. He says, Kirk, don't worry. I know my way around the courtroom, around the criminal justice system. We're going to find our way out of here together. And he put his hand on the glass to say goodbye. He picked up his briefcase, turned around, and ran right into the wall. He was right. I was in a lot of trouble. It's really funny. But on August 9th, 1984, at about 2:45 in the morning, it wasn't funny at all. Open up. It's the Baltimore County Police Department. I have a warrant for the arrest of Kirk Bloodsworth. I go to the door, had a terry cloth shirt on. It's a hot summer in 1984 in Maryland. Silk running shorts on, no shirts, you know. All I had was barefooted, and they brought me outside. Step outside, Mr. Bloodsworth. You're under arrest of first-degree murder, USOB. And they said the full sentence. For killing 9-year-old Dawn Hamilton. Armed and discharged Marine with no criminal record, no criminal history, never been arrested for anything. And, you know, I was a Marine. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I was an angel, for God's sake, but I was not the person they said it was. I was a hard-working guy, a commercial fisherman on the eastern shore of Maryland, where I was a crabber with my father. There's been a fisherman in my family for 250 years. I'm the last one. We have an island in Chesapeake Bay named after my family called Bloodsworth Island. Okay, we used to hang out with pirates and stuff, but we were good people. We were good people, and I grew up in a good home. Christian parents. My mother, God bless her, she was a good woman, taught me how to read. The next thing I know, this whole thing started because a next door neighbor called the police and told them in Baltimore County, I had just moved there, I had only been there for less than 20 days. I was just newly married. My wife couldn't stand the 16-hour days of how a fisherman's life is. You're just married to your boat. I mean, that's really your first wife, and you just have to do that job 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, from April until October. That was my life. She wanted to move back to Baltimore County, where she was from. I got pining over my wife really badly. I left the man I was fishing with and hitchhiked to Baltimore on 4th of July weekend, 1984. So this whole thing was based on a witness identification of the last person seen with Dawn Hamilton. And the description of this person is as follows: 6'5", curly blonde hair, bushy mustache, tan skin, and skinny. My hair was as red as an apple in 1984. I mean bright, I looked at pumpkin. Okay, that's the closest thing I can tell you. Sideburns down to here. Had a missing tooth in the front. I do not tan. Okay, I'm a redhead. I don't tan, I burn. I'm about 6 foot tall. You know, weigh about 230, 240 pounds. Now, there was 5 identification witnesses in all. Positively, now wait a minute, positively, no doubt in their minds, positively said it was me, the last person they had saw with Dawn Hamilton. Now, I was arrested on a Thursday, August 9th, 1984. They called each and every witness in the case and told them not to watch television. We've arrested a suspect, and we don't want you to watch TV and taint the ID because we're going to have a lineup on that coming Monday. They called every witness and told them that and said, by the way, his name is Kirk Bloodsworth. It was just one of so many red flags that flew in my life in this time. Anything I did and anything I said, from the time I was arrested till the moment I was released, I told anyone and everyone I was an innocent man. I used to write my correspondence, respectively submitted, Kirk Noble Bloodsworth, A period, I period, M period. I signed some shirts back there tonight with the same inscription. The lineup comes, the 2 main witnesses were 2 little boys, and I'm going to talk about the crime in a minute, because we need to talk about these things. This is what we need to talk about in the communities, and the horror of what this little girl had went through. On July 25th, 1984, just a few weeks before I was arrested for this crime, 9-year-old Dawn Hamilton had a sleepover on the night before. She woke up, she watched The Facts of Life on TV at about 10:30, 11 o'clock. About 11:30, I think they all went outside, according to the court reports. She was it. She come along in Baltimore County, there's a small little hamlet with a pond around it, you know. And her parents and her aunt that was watching her that day told them, you know, stay out of the woods, stay out of the pond, because there's a lot of trouble. This is Baltimore County now, in Essex. It was a bad part, bunch of people. There was like 15 known sex offenders in and around Fontana Village Apartments. All sorts of different, really crazy people. She came across 2 little boys that were fishing, catching some sunfish in that little pond next, it's called Bethke's Pond. She come across them and asked them for help to find her friends that she couldn't find. They declined. They just caught this turtle. They were more interested in that. But a man on the rise of a hill area with the sun behind his head spoke up and said he would help her find her friends. And with Dawn leading the way, she wasn't found until 2:30 that afternoon. This is right around between 11:30 and 12 when they walked out. They found her body lying face down in a pile of leaves. Her head was crushed with what they thought was a rock. Her throat was stepped on with so much force that the imprint of the shoe embedded into her flesh. and she was naked from the waist down. Her shorts and panties were in a tree nearby her body, and the ultimate horror placed upon this little 9-year-old girl with a page boy haircut was a stick was inserted in her body. That is what this honorably discharged Marine was charged with, and they were seeking the death penalty in my case. I had no idea what I was about to enter into. I had never been arrested. I never had to get a lawyer. You know, the one I had wasn't very good. He saw me 3 times in my entire 8-month stay before I went to death row. The trial lasted about 2 weeks. Everybody coming forward and pointing at me and saying, "That's the guy, there's the monster." Let's talk about the witnesses really quickly. You had the 2 little boys now. When they went to the lineup on that Monday, they never identified me in the lineup. Even when they saw the pictures in the photo array that they gave them before they even had the lineup, they said the hair was too red. He said his eyes don't look quite the same. They're similar, but they're not the same. They kept saying. They also said that the guy they saw had a Fu Manchu type of a mustache. It went over. They didn't describe it as that. The cops did. And it went over like this. The police never put their mustache on. This is made out of an identikit it's made from Disney. It's a sets of overlays in this composite that they put together. Sets of overlays, eyes, ears, noses, mouths, and it's like, you know, how those old projectors used to put celluloid slides on to make this face. They weren't happy with it. The other little boy, the littlest of the 2, Jackie, couldn't make the composite. But the older Chris tried to, and he came up with this one little picture. And so what they did, they took the 2 little boys and put them together to agree upon the older child's composite. They rode home in a police car. They went to the lineup, never identified me in the lineup until 2 weeks later. They called the police after I had been on TV for 2 weeks and said it looks like we made a mistake. It's really number 6, and that's the position I stood in, along with 4 police officers and 1 other DUI inmate from the county jail, and he stood next to me. Now, after all this was over and everybody talked, there was witnesses that they had. They had one guy named James Keller who was testified in open court that he had saw this individual as early as 6 in the morning. So we started talking to him. You know, my lawyer started asking him questions. Well, where did you see Mr. Bloodsworth at? And he said, how did you identify him? He said, I saw him on TV. There was another witness. She had said she wrote her statement out and read her statement, said I had made some incriminating remarks. And the problem with that is when we got her on the stand, we asked her where she went to school. She was a dropout. She could not read or write. And it was a simple statement that she was given by my lawyer, can you read? And she could not even read that. There was another witness who said she had saw the man and heard him say, we're all playing hide and go seek, identified me, but in the first initial statement, she never seen him at all. She just heard somebody say these words. The trial went on. I had an alibi of over 10 witnesses. It was my day off from work. I never left the house that day. I was working at a wicker warehouse when I had moved to Baltimore. I got a job within a week because I could lift a lot of things. I could empty a trailer truck out in no time. I had lifted so many bushels of crabs and oysters, and I just wanted to work. That's all I wanted to do, make money for my family. It didn't really work out between my first wife and I moved back to my hometown of Cambridge and left everything there August the 4th weekend, a month to the day I had went up. And that's when they came and got me. The trial lasted 2 weeks, and when it was over, the gavel came down on my life. The sentence was death and double life. The courtroom erupted in applause. Give him the gas and kill his ass, they said. They partied until They applauded so loud you could hear them. They said down the courtroom halls. My life was over. I became the most hated man in the state of Maryland in a matter of weeks. I wound up going to one of the most notorious prisons in the United States, the Maryland Penitentiary at 954 4th Street. You were talking about prisons and how we're talking about accountability and all that. But I'm going to tell you what the cell looked like when I was in it. I was in handcuffs and waist chain and belt and ankle irons. I get off this bus and I go down a narrow corridor, down the causeway, and I could hear the catcalls coming. Because the Maryland Penitentiary looks like a Gothic castle. 20-foot thick granite stones, silver spires reaching up to the sky. Something right out of Castle Dracula. And the catcalls are coming from the yard. We're going to get you, Kirk. We're going to do to you what you did to that little girl. Over and over and over and over and over for months and weeks at a time. They took me to my cell in this narrow 120-some foot tier. It was death row. They put you on suicide watch first when you first come there. They opened that 300-some pound door that was painted in chip paint of yellow and gray and blue and different shades. And when that thing slammed shut, it sounded like the tailgate of a dump truck. They stuck me in a cell that I could take both arms like this and touch either wall by just going an inch either way. I could take 3 steps from the back cell and be to the cell door. I had a metal rack, a stainless steel toilet and sink, slate floors and ceiling. This place smelled so bad. Dirty cleaning water and lack of good hygiene. And there was about 500 and some of us on one side or the other. Between the two, you could hear the screams of the psychotic at night. All sorts of hollering, moaning, gnashing of teeth, as the Bible says. This was my life. This is where I was bound to be. I got a styrofoam cup that was supposed to be full of spaghetti. All I could remember was my mom, who the last dinner I ever had with her when she was alive was fried chicken and mashed potatoes. And this styrofoam scum with a tomato in it. It was supposed to be spaghetti and there was a bite taken out of it. I just ate it anyway. Because I was a Marine and I wasn't going to let them see me fall to pieces. But something happened to me that night I wasn't ready for. I succumbed to all the pain and all the anguish of being accused of being a child killer. I had one blanket and a naugahyde mattress, and that was it. I took the blanket, I crawled underneath the bunk, and pushed my face in it so hard so nobody could hear me, and I cried myself to sleep. I was 22 years old. For 8 years, 10 months, and 19 days, I stayed in this place where I did not belong. I remember one of the first nights I spent there, and I became a prison librarian for 7.5 years. I've read everything from Gestalt psychology to Stephen King. Whatever was in the library, I read it. Don't everybody ask me what Gestalt psychology is, because I have no idea. But I was reading this magazine one night, and I was looking up, because you lay down, you was laying down, and I was propping myself up a little bit, and the lights went out. Everywhere. There was no light anywhere. It was like a cave, like some cave here in New Hampshire. You could not see your hand in front of your face. And then the other convicts started streaming, because they can't see now. They started shaking the bars and filling their toilets with toilet paper and socks and flooding the tiers below. And I was below them. And this cascaded, this incredible waterfall comes sweeping around my bars and sliding in my floor with all sorts of things in it. These things were hitting me in the face, in the mouth, and coming out of the ceiling. And now they're lighting fires. They're lighting their Bibles on fire. They're lighting their Qurans on fire, books, anything they could get. This screaming and smoke is going everywhere, and these things are hitting me in the face and in the eyes, and the power popped back on. And I'm not kidding, folks. There was a sea of cockroaches swimming across the ceiling, running away from the light. If you swooped your hand over them, they would run through your fingers like grains of sand. I used to have to take wads of toilet paper and stick them in my ears so they wouldn't crawl in there, because they would. One of my neighbors had that happen to him, and he went mad. But this was my life. My case was overturned by prosecutorial misconduct. They pulled a report about a suspect that the judge knew about for 2 years. Not like you, Judge Murphy. I couldn't believe that this man had done this to me. He sat on this evidence, and he kind of said, well, it's not exculpatory. Well, let me just explain what the evidence was. It was about a man on an access road in a station wagon the day of her murder, 187 feet away from her body, saying he was rolling up newspapers. And when they found him, they never had any ink on his hands. And he's the one that found her articles of clothing in the tree. He would literally almost had to walk over her to find those items. When they searched his car, because he gave the underwear and clothing to her father that was watching and was looking in the search, they searched his car and found a pair of little girl's panties in his console. They asked him, what are you doing with these items? And his explanation for this was, I found them in the same woods 2 days before, and I'm going to take them home and wash them and give them to my daughter for her dolls. He had a red spot. They never tested to see if it was blood. When they found the undergarments, he vomited. And the state of Maryland said that was not exculpatory because he was 2 inches shorter than me. Not the suspect, me. And had long hair. Remember, since the sun was behind his head, these are 2 little boys. But the Court of Appeals thought otherwise. My case was overturned, and I was sent back to retrial. There was like a plethora of different suspects. There was one suspect that was let go for 2 attempted rapes of 2 little girls a year before, 2 weeks before Dawn was murdered. His police report came across the Baltimore County desk. They never went back to check him out. His name was Kimberly Shea Ruffner, who had a record as long as I am tall. They never went to check it. The same trial happened again, and they sought the death penalty like that. You know how much it cost the state of Maryland to prosecute me twice? $6 million. And they got it wrong. I went back to prison. They convicted me again and sentenced me to double life. My life was about over now. I didn't know what to do. Everything from direct appeal to writ of cert, everything I was trying was denied, 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 denied. The screw was tightening down on my life. And this was it. I was now just 30 years old, almost 9 years now. I had a book in the mail that was given to me by the guards. I don't know where these books came from. It was 4 books, and one book was about origami. I didn't want to have time to fool with that. There was another book about pastel drawings. I figured I'd keep it. But the one book that took my imagination away was a book written by a former son of a Pittsburgh police officer and a cop in his own right, Joseph Wambaugh. Joseph Wambaugh had made books into movies, The Choir Boys and The Onion Field, and all these different true crime stories. Son of a Pittsburgh police officer, LA police officer himself. He wrote a book called The Bloody, the first time a new technology was ever used in a criminal case. Deoxyribonucleic acid, otherwise known as DNA. And to make a long story short, the founder of this technology is named Alec Jeffries. He came up with this new technology back right about a month after I was arrested. He found the one gene that separates us all, and it could identify any person in this room doing the right test. I read on, they tested 5,500 men in the town of Narborough.